Hello, hello. It's been a while. But I guess we'll start off with introductions. Hi, I'm Emily. I lead DevRel at Scroll. And here today we have a guest that you might have seen quite a few times, Billy from API3. I believe we are in part 3 of our series. So I guess head over to our YouTube channel to find all the others. But I guess without further ado, I'll let you kind of dive into it. Maybe we first start off with like a refresher on everything we've done together so far in this
Yes,
multi-part workshop series, and we'll
indeed,
take it
indeed.
from there.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to put this to the side. Hello, hello. Yeah, if you look back and look at the series, you'll see that my hair was really short because I shaved it off for like summer, and now it's longer in December. So you can watch my evolution through the YouTube series. But yes, I'm Billy from API3. If you want to follow the updates of what's happening with API3 or my shenanigans, you can check out the QR code. I do this for every workshop, so it's all the same for every workshop. But yes, just to recap, the first workshop was fundamentals of API3. What is API3? We provide price feeds for smart contracts, so you can use it for DeFi, decentralized finance, on the chain level, not off chain, but on chain. I also showed you guys how to use an adapter. So let's say you have this, amazing repo that uses another Oracle. You don't have to refactor your code to use API3 oracles. You can use a simple adapter. So, that's kind of like what we're doing today. We're going to be forking Aave and then using API3 oracles when it used another Oracle before. Second workshop was Oracle Extractable Value. What makes API3 oracles difference? How push and pull oracles work? Introduction into like why this is important and what is the missing factor for on-chain liquidations on there. And then today, which is an exciting one, is actually deploying an Aave. We're going to split this up into 2 workshops. So it's going to be like 3A, 3B, because it's going to take longer than an hour to get through everything. So we're going to learn how to deploy Aave with API3 CLI tool. And then we're also in the second part, understanding how this all works. And the second part, we're actually going to do a liquidation, how to make money in this space, right? In this market, we've been seeing a lot of volatility going up and down. Things are moving up and down 20%. And a lot of people are over leveraging. So there is opportunity on literally every chain. If you check Dune Analytics, it's insanity. And so we're going to cover that in the near future, pretty soon, probably in January. And then fourth workshop, right? It's amazing to be able to do liquidations, but I don't have $1 million to pay back that loan to make that profit. Well, that's where flash loans come in. And we're going to split this up into 2 workshops as well. So we're going to learn how to do a flash loan against Aave, V2, V3. And then in workshop 4B, we're going to put it all together. We're going to get a liquidation. We're going to learn how to monitor that position. We're going to get a flash loan. We're going to liquidate that position, make money, and then laugh all our way to the bank. And hopefully we do that before the bull market is over. So today's main thing is we're going to deploy our own Aave fork with API3 CLI tool. And so this is the workshop key learning points, right? We're going to learn how borrow lending works. What is over collateralization with LTV, right? How does the platform itself stay healthy? Like, you have this mechanic that you don't really intervene with. So how do you make sure that it doesn't just spiral down to nothing, right? And then understanding our fork deployment, like you're going to be using API3 adapters for legacy code. So I'm not going to cover that too much in detail because that was done in the first workshop. So make sure to check out the Level Up YouTube series to make sure that you get to that first workshop to understand it in more detail. And then we're actually going to deposit a position and borrow money out to get you on there. So like right now, if you are wanting to long or short the market, understand how to do so. Like if you have a whole bunch of ETH right now and you're like, wow, ETH is on a run up, right? I wish I had more money to buy more ETH. Well, you can deposit ETH, borrow USDC, and buy more ETH if you believe it's going to go up in value, right? So that's how you leverage your position using borrow lending. So what is a borrow lending DApp in general? What's the mechanics, right? So a DApp that really enables users to deposit their assets and earn yield, right? Like I said, if you have ETH and you're just sitting there doing nothing in your wallet, you can lend it out to other people that want to use that or leverage it, right? So having users deposit, people can lend it out. I can lend it out to Emily if I wanted to, but the over collateralization is in order for her to borrow assets, she has to put a little skin in the game too, right? Because we can make anonymous wallets. And so, if you borrow something without having to pay it back, we've seen it more times than not. People don't pay back their loans. So you make sure that you over collateralize. So she has to put in a little bit of skin in the game to borrow something out as well. And then the borrowing rate is usually higher than the lending rate. So if I'm lending, right now the markets are crazy. USDC is like 15 to 20%, APY. So like you probably are paying 20 to 25% to borrow out, right? So that 5% difference is where that yield is coming from and where the platform profits in a sense. And I'm checking the comments just in case of GM. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. And as we get into the DApp, I'll explain it a little bit more. But in essence, you put in, you earn a little bit yield. Someone's willing to borrow out and pay more for that. And that difference is where that money is made and where the yield is from. So you aren't not necessarily the yield itself. So how does the platform know how much to lend? And this is where oracles come in, right? So everything's done off the base of USDC, right? If I put in 1 ETH, how much is that in dollars? Like how much in USDC can I borrow off ETH? And you need an oracle to do that. So that's where API3's oracles come in. Right now, I'm going to say ETH is what I'm going to say average up $4,000. So if I wanted to borrow exactly 1 ETH amount, that would be $4,000 of USDC, right? But you can't over collateralized. I can't borrow exact amount, otherwise I can never pay it back, right? If I borrow $4,000 and then ETH goes down to like 3,500, I walk away with $500 profit. No harm, no foul, right? So the average loan is about 70% of your total value. So if I had $1,000 of ETH, the maximum I can borrow is $700. Now that changes per asset. It depends on the risk factor of that. ETH doesn't know what it is in US dollars, like I mentioned, so we use an oracle to tell us what the common prices. And then different assets have different risks, right? So like I said, ETH is about 70%, wrap BTC is another one. But like if we were creating a market for, I mean, what's hot right now, what the A16Z coin or something, that's way more risky, way more volatile. Do we really want to lend you up to 70% of those assets? Maybe we'll do 50% and we have that 20% buffer. So really depending on the token itself, the historic value of it, where you can sell it, where you can buy it, those all play a part in how you decide how your assets are going to be lent out. Health factor is something that's going to be a key word that determines your health position. Your health factor is how much you deposit versus how much you borrow out versus the risk factor. So, if there's a certain percentage, your health factor is a very, very important thing. The higher the number, the healthier your platform is. Once you get to 1, you're in a very, very dangerous position. Below 1, you're a liquidation position. For this code, Aave measures against ETH value. So we do conversions to do USD calculations. So if you're looking at the code and you're breaking it down, most things are valued against ETH, and then there's a conversion to turn it into USD. So that's where the Oracle comes in. So
Okay, can I interrupt really fast? I feel
yes,
like my brain farted right when you were talking about health factors. Can you
yes,
talk a little bit about how, like, that's calculated? I don't know if you
yes.
mentioned it.
Yes, it's better to see it visually in the actual platform. But when I deposit, let's say $1,000 of ETH, right? My health factor is like infinity because I'm not borrowing anything, right? And so now if I take out a loan of 70%, let's say $700, my loan to value is at max, right? So I put in $1,000, I've taken out $700, my loan to value is at max. That calculation is based in a formula, which I will get into in a little bit later. But basically, the total amount you put in divided by the amount you've taken out times the loan to value, that is your health factor. So if you're above 1, you're healthy. Nobody could touch your position. You start getting closer and closer to that number 1, you're in very dangerous position. As for a searcher, when I see someone close to 1.1, 1.2, or 1, I know at any market change shift, they are available for liquidation. So in any place that you go, you'll see a health factor in your position in a borrow lending app, like you go to Aave, Compound, or anything, you'll see a health factor position number on there. The reason it's not very easy is because different assets have different, average loan values. So if I put in wrap BTC, I put in some ETH, I put in, some other asset, well, they all have different health values. And then if I borrow USDC, those calculations all help you determine your health factor. So it's not a one-on-one formula. It's a mixture of like what the asset is, what the risk dependency is, and what value. Like if ETH goes up and wrap BTC goes down, how do you calculate your health value? It gets a little bit more mathematically complicated. So if your value is above 1, you're good. If you're getting low, no bueno, right? Your liquidation point. hopefully that is a little bit of a peek into what we'll cover. But yeah, like your position should never be below 70% of what you, or above 70% what you borrowed, because then you're running the risk of the platform. And so it incentivizes users to pay back the loan. So it gets healthy, and then you take the L.
Cool. We have a
Sort of.
question. Will we
Yeah.
get the slides? I know
Yeah,
we have
I
a
can put the slides
GitHub,
up.
but like,
Yeah. Yeah, I could put the slides up there for public, no question.
cool.
Yeah. So, structure of the contracts. When you look at Aave's source code, it is overwhelming, right? Like I think I said mentioned before, when you start looking into DeFi, there's like, oh, here's how to deploy an ERC20 contract, and here's a token, and then all of a sudden, here's a whole 30 contract repo and like nothing in between, right? So like you have to go like right into it. So in the Aave docs, they have this structure, and for the most part, for our purposes, for liquidations and everything, most of the stuff runs out of the lending pool contract, right? So you're going to see all the functions like deposit, withdraw, borrow, repay, trade assets, flash loans, liquidate. That all interfaces with the lending pool. There are different structures how we work for Aave, but basically has a configuration contract to run all the configurations behind the scenes. It has a lending rate oracle on there. So it's like, all right, what is the oracle going to use? What is the lending rate we're going to do per asset? There's an oracle's proxies, like which oracle are we going to use? And how do we optimize that? And this is kind of where we do the adapters for. They have A tokens and DEP tokens. When you deposit USDC into the contract, you get a receipt called a USDC, which is basically the receipt for it. And that's the beauty of DeFi, right? Like if I deposit $1,000 to the bank on a CD and they lock it in for like 4%, that's it. There's nothing else I could do with it, right? Like it's there, it's going to earn the 4% yield or whatever. With DeFi and smart contract level, while I have this receipt that this is earning yield, I can then leverage that to another location. I could take it to another, bank or other kind of platform and say, hey, I have these tokens that receipts that are good value. What can I do off this? And then you can leverage your yield and deposit it somewhere else and then earn more on that position on there. So it has a whole token structure for those receipts for every token, and then a debt token too. When you borrow out, you have this, immovable debt on there behind you. So it's basically you can't take your money out because you have debt tokens. So there's a whole mechanics behind it. So if you really want to get deep into like the borrow lending contracts and how the functions work, it's all in there. But for our intended purposes, for everything that the user does and the liquidator does, it all comes down to the lending pool contract. And we'll look at that, we'll sneak peek into that code just to see what's in there. So key factors for the CLI tool. We've made it easier to actually deploy this. I know a lot of people have tried to do it. When I first looked at it, I was like, whoa. So we kind of just CLI'd it. So the original fork uses a different oracle. It used the Chainlink oracle. So we've created adapters to use API3 oracles. So wherever API3 is, you can deploy this whatever chain you like. Asset values are represented in terms of ETH. So it uses ETH as a store of value. So we do the conversions on the app level to USDC. So when you borrow ETH, you can see it on USDC value. Most ERC tokens are 18 decimals, but stable coins like USDC and USDT are 6 decimals. So you have to keep into consideration when you're borrowing out and do any conversions. Later in liquidation stages, I have adapters that reads decimals, so you can definitely check that out. You can add any token in collateral as long as there's a price feed for it, and we'll go through that as well. So, it's like, oh, I wish they list this asset. Well, you have the power to do it yourself now. To deploy Aave contracts, you will need a private RPC endpoint, especially on Scroll. I tried doing it on the testnet with the public RPC, and it got timed out. I just got rate limited. Excuse me. So you have to use a private RPC. You can get one like on Alchemy, one of those free ones, or I think I used mine on QuickNode. Totally free. Just sign up with your email, get a private one. It's enough to get you deployed on there. You will need to use Docker to deploy Aave contracts. Why do we do that? Because it uses an older version of Node, and not everybody's going to have NVM to do Node versions, and they're going to come into a lot of complications. So we have Docker that will help you do that Node environment to basically deploy it out much, much easier for you. Link to the example on here is the GitHub repo. It's currently sitting on my GitHub right now. We have an official one. I've been charged with creating like an npm type of wizard. So like an npm structure, create borrow lending dapp, and it's going to take you step by step to basically deploy it, but that's going to take a while. So we're living on mine for now. So you could definitely check that out and get that up and running. And that's it. I don't like talking about PowerPoints. I like jumping right into the code. So if you have questions or anything, let me create this share out here too right now, since we have it. Let me have everybody a viewer. I will copy this link and we will share this out in the private chat and then reshare it. And those are the link slides. If there's any questions or anything, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to just start jumping into this. So this is the GitHub repo link. Basically, you can just copy this and fork it over to you. For those on Mac, you'll have no issue whatsoever. For those on Windows, everything will work on the smart contract
I'm going
level.
to interrupt you
Yes.
again. I think your sharing permissions are wrong. You gave everyone in the org API3
Oops.
viewer, but then all us normies who aren't part of that organization are still being locked out here.
Oh man. Okay, let me dig into the slides here. 1 second, as I just closed it out. 1 second.
It's in our private chat.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hold on. But yeah, if there's any questions while I'm digging through this really quick and setting the permissions on this other window, I am here for it. If not, we'll sit here in awkward silence for just a second while I get this up and running. And let me fork it because I think it has limited permissions. Let me check. Anyone with link. There we go. Okay, that should be good.
Okay. Is it the same link?
Yeah, same one.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you for letting me know live. So there we go. So yeah, if you have Windows, everything will work to the smart contract level, but the front end will not work. So you have to use WSL Linux in order to do so. So I strongly suggest for you to do that. I'm going to be doing it here. For those that have never used WSL on a Windows machine, if you create a folder in your Windows, it's going to be extremely slow. So when you create a WSL, make sure to copy your repo into the WSL folder and it'll work normally. So I learned that the hard way. Like I would do stuff on Windows, on the local Windows, like C drive. And when I ran tests or ran it to execution, it took like 30 seconds longer for every transaction that needed to. So make sure that when you do something in the WSL folder, wherever that WSL folder lives, just fork your repo to that location. And then if you are using a VS Code, you can use your intro, like connect to WSL using your distribution, and then connect to your WSL location. And then all your repos and everything will go based on that. That's something that you have to kind of like work on the side just in case. Mac users will work right out of the box. But that's just a quick note for you guys on that. So when you fork it, you'll be up in here. You have your API3 adapters folder, which is this extra folder, and then everything else is pretty much a fork of Aave. What are the adapters for? Let me bring this back into you for the Excalidraw. Remember, we were using a different Oracle, right? So let me pop this in and grab here. So previously it was using this other Oracle. It was just feeding right into the proxy contract, right? We're doing ETH. It was like 1,000, but this one uses, I don't know. I'm just going to pretend that it uses 3 decimals, right? So it was $1,000 of whatever value, but it would read in like a 3 decimal format, right? And so API3 is in 18 decimals, right? So we have this 1,000 and just pretend, and this is horrible writing, but just pretend there's 18 zeros at the end of this. So we use this adapter to make sure that it fits the format that this Oracle had and then goes in here. And that's what this entire, oops, let me go ahead and clear that out and go back to the mouse. That's what this entire folder is for, like this adapters folder. Basically, it's smart contracts that have the adapters for each one of these tokens that we want to use to make sure it hits the right format. And so we basically come down, if you look at the ENV example, we're using mnemonics, and people say, how come you don't use private keys? Is when I do liquidations, I don't want to have to do multiple private keys. I'm going to do that one mnemonic, and then I'm just going to generate a new wallet and then just run liquidation. So the first one is going to be like the deployer, And then the second one can be a depositor and over leverage. And then my deployer can then liquidate that one. So I go back and forth a lot. So I use mnemonics so then I can go switch back and forth. Just so you can look at it, we have, these adapters, pretty much just external token that has the data feed. Nothing out of the ordinary that we did with the first workshop. So nothing too crazy. So if you look at the repo itself directly, there is a step-by-step guide. Oh, 1 second. Right here, step-by-step guide in the README that tells you pretty much all what you have to do. Install the Docker, install Docker Compose. If you install Docker directly on the link, it's going to have Docker Compose already in there. If you're running some weird Unix fork or Linux fork on there that might need Docker Compose, you can do it manually through Docker Compose. But the prerequisites is just going to basically follow this, change to the adapters folder, install the packages, and then do some configurations. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to do that step by step. So I'm going to go ahead and CD into the API3 adapters, and then basically yarn install, or just yarn the packages in there. I think I might have installed them already. Oh, I haven't. So we're doing it all together one by one. If you have questions, let me know. When we get into this config JSON file, this is where all the cool things happen. So this is a little folder that's going to let us choose what tokens we want in our borrow lending app, right? Like whenever you see like a new deployment somewhere, you're like, oh, it only has wrapped Bitcoin and it only has, wrapped ETH, and I wish there was more assets. If there's a proxy fee for it, you can list it. So right here, we're going to do wrap Bitcoin, wrap BTC. So what we're going to do in our market, go to market.api3.org, DAPIs. And right now we're going to deploy this to testnet. So I'm going to go scroll. So I have scroll testnet. And let me switch that network. And we're going to look for stuff. So I've kind of already, Billy Jitsu token. That's my reference on there for people that want to make like fake tokens. So I'm going to go to wrap BTC. I already went ahead and, kind of purchased the feed already. Again, you can do this dynamically. If the feed is already purchased, you can just use it like this. And so I want to integrate it. And this is our proxy address, right? So this is our address for wrap BTC on scroll. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. I'm just going to slide this over right here. And our proxy address is going to be this address. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and rinse and repeat that for like ETH, USD, integrate. Copy that and pop this in the ETH USD proxy address. These are all like important ones here. USDC. If there's any questions or anything, go ahead and let me know. I'm just kind of taking you through all this mundane stuff because it's something you have to do. I don't want to skip over it and then say, oh, you're supposed to do this. And so this feed is not activated. So I'm going to go ahead and purchase the USDC one. And again, it's just testnet. So if you're doing it right now on scroll, right now, I've already purchased it, so you can use it freely. Once the block goes through. In time. And then I'm going to skip on the Billy Jitsu token. I know it's a hot item. It's everybody wants it, but there hasn't been a TGE yet. So I'm going to go ahead and say that was USDC USD. So these are important ones because this is the conversions. And I'm going to make that into scroll token. And we'll do SCR. And that'll be SCR USDC. Just to show you, like, you can dynamically do whatever you want on there and make that happen. So let me go back. And then SCR. And that feed died. So I deployed this like last week. And so I only bought a little bit enough to keep that feed alive. If you're going like to production, you can definitely purchase longer times, not just a week, or talk to the team and we can make sure that your feed never goes down. But right now for testnet, I'm just like purchasing the feeds as we go. And waiting for that block to get in there. There we go. And so it's that easy. Like, this is how quick it is to make a feed go live. Literally purchase it and it like goes instantaneously. So super awesome. Kudos to the market team for that, because that used to take a minute. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the mock API3. And so right now, what we're going to have listed on our assets is going to be wrap Bitcoin. We're going to have scroll token, let that Copilot go away. Definitely need ETH, USD, USDC, because those are primary what we need. We're going to have my chain ID is going to be for Scroll Sepolia, RPC here. So this is what I was talking about for that RPC. So I'm going to go over to QuickNode. That's just one RPC that I randomly chose because it was super easy to get in. Let me put my email in there really quick and then get it going. With my 5,000 emails here. Give me 1 second. And so like the reason I didn't kind of like prepare this for you, so you can see like all the step-by-step process that it takes to get this all up and running. And so you'll see that your dashboard's here, and I have this, one free one on this account right here. And so I'm going to go ahead and kill that. Let me, can I delete this? This is all dead stuff anyway. As I give you guys like, yeah, I understand. Can I just copy this out? I'm killing out an old API, just going to do one free one. So anybody can do this. It's not like it costs money or anything. You don't need a credit card on file. You don't need any of that stuff. I'm just going to open up a brand new one. So I'm going to create an endpoint. And I'm going to go for scroll. And I'm not like paid by QuickNote or anything. The one RPC I knew that worked that I could do with the email. So you could use anyone if you're whatever is Anchor.
But if QuickNote happens to be watching, Billy
Yeah.
accepts payments.
Yeah, and so I'm going to do scroll testnet. And then I don't need any of these. I just need an endpoint, which I'm going to delete here. So don't go wild with my endpoint and kill my testnet here. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that RPC right here. So it's whatever API. So now I won't get rate limited when I deploy this, right? So if we go back to our CLI, we've done our configuration files with all the coins we want. Proxies, we did our our setup for our RPC. And so we want to have our mnemonic, which we have here, our 12 words. Bring that back. And so now what we're going to do is just literally type yarn deploy adapters. So let's go ahead and do so. Yarn deploy adapters. And actually, let me make this bigger here so people can see. I'm going to go geriatric on here so that people can check it out. And so it's just going to shoot out all the tokens, going to compile it out. I'm going to deploy all our ERC20 tokens that we've created, and it's going to deploy the adapters for it as well. So it's basically, building out the aggregation files, all the mock proxies that I have, USDC with the faucet on here. So like when you're trying to do liquidations, you can kind of mint out more USDC like in your EOA. Really simple for liquidations once I prepare you for it. So like even if you over leverage yourself, you can always grab more tokens and then do liquidations. So that takes a little while to get all these tokens out and deployed. And so what happens when I deploy these tokens is it mints it all to your wallet, your primary wallet, so it's in there. And then what you want to look at is your references.json file gets made up here. So if I do that, we're going to see that we have all our tokens deployed and the token address and then the aggregator contract adapter using it. So this is our Oracle that it's pushing to. So we have a wrap BTC, our scroll token, our USDC, and everything we need, our mock with, however you say it. And then I have this mock proxy on here. That's for future, but you have all your token references. Everything that we reference from now on will be in this references folder. So when we deploy our primary Aave deployment, it's going to reference these tokens, reference these adapters for everything that it does moving forward. So don't delete that. That's in this references folder within the API3 adapters. So once you have your config, you deploy it, you have this references. This is where everything gets based off of. So like this is your list of all your token assets. So we can minimize this adapters. We can go back to the main one. We now have our tokens deployed. We have our adapters already set. So if we go back here, It's telling us to go back to the root directory, and then we have to make sure we have our mnemonic here. In the new repo, I will make sure that you only need one mnemonic, but here in there, just make sure that this mnemonic here is in cap letters. The one that I had in the API3 adapters was in small letters. That way we knew the difference. You could use different keys. I am using the same keys on here, but just so you know, like I messed up a few times with that on there because they use a large cap. So coming back to this, we're basically going to open up our Docker Compose and we're ready to deploy right here. So we just copy and paste this. So we're going to Docker Compose up. We have to make sure that we open up our Docker. So I'm going to have Docker all loaded up here. Give me just a second to do so. If you haven't installed it, the latest version of Docker will handle everything. One key note for those that are using WSL, you have to make sure to tell Docker to include WSL in the images as well. And I will load that up in just a second. And so in the settings and the resources, WSL integration, make sure to have your WSL version that you're using checked. Otherwise, you'll have a bad time like I did and try to figure out after hours of like why this isn't touching Docker at all. Mac users or regular PC users don't need to do this. They will automatically pick it up. But just to make sure, if you are a WSL user on Windows, make sure to have that on there. So I'm going to go ahead and paste this Docker Compose up. And it's basically going to pull all the files up, create this. This takes a little while to get up and running. It is creating an image for us here. So let me go ahead and cancel to get our Docker container up and running. So just give it a little while here. And let's go into the next section. If you are stuck or any questions, let me know. But we're going to open up another tab or terminal to basically get our env bash files loaded up in the terminal here. So let me go ahead and open up another one. It's still going to take a little bit of time. It takes a minute, and that's why I want to show you live, because when you're kind of like following along in a video and I shortcut it and like something takes like 5 more minutes, people tend to jump the gun and say, oh, it didn't work. So live struggles with me on here. So I'm going to go ahead and paste it just so you guys can see it. It's not quite ready yet, so you might get an error, but it looks like it's ready to go. So it might have like preloaded everything here. Okay, so that was pretty quick. Usually it takes a little bit longer. So I've already loaded the contracts env to the bash file. And so now we're just going to call, the migration. We're actually going to deploy it. So let me go ahead and paste that in here. I know it's like super geriatric, but let me just slide this over a little bit more. You'll see that it's yarn run Aave custom full migration. It basically uses our custom files and folders. There we go. It's still going. That's where we're going to get the error. And so it'll run the full migration for everything that we have here. If we look into like the hard hat config files on here, we've made some adjustments to use the custom location to reference this location where the adapters is in the config JSON file. So like it's all done for you. You don't have to really mess with it. You don't have to do anything out of the box. Just run these scripts and you're ready to go. So I think it's ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And it's going to just start loading up the downloading the compiler, downloading the node versions, and then just start deploying. Now, Scroll's testnet is a little bit slower than the mainnet. So this takes a long time. Like it takes a good 15, 20 minutes on average, depending on the traffic on there. I talked to the engineering team of like, I was having trouble. Like, oh, we're having issues. And I did it late night when there was a lot less developers working on the Scroll testnet, and it worked. When I did it during prime time, I was having some problems. So like any good baker, I've already loaded another one ready to go, deployed on Scroll testnet. So then we've basically done, and we'll come back to this in a little bit, but you'll see that it's like loading a whole bunch of stuff. You'll see the screen, deployed this with the gas price, like all the Aave deployment and everything. As it loads, you'll start seeing all the contract addresses and everything like being loaded and deployed it per the block per transaction. Again, with that private RPC, you will not get rate limited, just a matter of timing of like how much traffic is on the network on here. So when we're all done, let me delete this. When we're all done, you basically get this deployed contract JSON file that's at the very end when you're all done. and let me make this a lot larger, you're going to see all the contracts that are deployed by Aave, and there is a lot of them. So like just scrolling up, you'll see the lending address pool, address provider, all these key lending pool, which is a key contract, and all these configurations, depth tokens, oracles, all these scripts and contracts that are out there. These all get deployed, and you have the addresses as a reference file right here in the deployed contracts JSON. And so this is where you'll be able to build off everything. So once you hit the deployment, you waited it out for like the 20 minutes or so. This is what you're left with on here. So you have all these references on here. So that's cool and everything, but we want to see it all live. So if we come back once we're done, we're going to go ahead and bring in a front end. Yes, we did do a whole front end for you as well, so you can deploy this on your own self. So all you have to do is do yarn front end code gen. What that's going to do is it's going to bring in a front end suite right here. You'll see it on the top, API3 adapters. So I'm going to go ahead and do code gen. It's going to go to our Git, and it's going to bring in, where is the adapters folder here? The Aave UI. So right here, you'll notice that folder is Aave UI. And what we're going to do is on that next part, we've downloaded the code. We're just going to load it up, yarn front end dev. So I'm going to copy that in, paste it down, and it's going to download all the packages, and then it's going to load it up on our front end. So it takes a little while to download those packages. Again, if you're using Windows, this is where you're going to get stuck. If you're using regular Windows on that conversion, for some reason, it doesn't like some of the spacing in the front end UI. So that's why I'm using WSL. So again, just in case if you're catching the video or if you're streaming through, I'm just going to like keep repeating that over and over again. This is why you want to use the WSL for this part. If you wanted to do just the smart contracts and work on liquidations without a front end, totally fine to use it on the Windows. If you want to play with the front end, use WSL if you are on Windows. On their Mac, this works straight out of the box. I work with both, guys. Get yourself a dev that does both, Windows struggles, Mac struggles. And
I
so,
guess while we're waiting, I do have a question. Is there like a Foundry version of this? I saw that it's like hard hat, but out
oh
of
no,
curiosity.
this is a hard hat version because that's what it was built off, built off. So
Mhm.
like, yeah, it's a straight fork of it. So that, yeah, we just stick with the
I see. Makes
hard hat
sense.
version.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, I like hard hat actually. I know
Cool.
Foundry has really cool testing suites, so I use a hybrid. So like testing suites with Foundry and deployment suite with hard hat, and it's a nice little hybrid on there. I actually have a video on the API3 tutorial section of like how to do that. So like if you have hard hat but you want to use the Foundry tooling, or and use the hard hat deployments, you can do that too. So yeah, super cool. All right, and so we loaded it, and so we're going to load our page here. This takes us to local 3000. And give it a second to load. And I think I might have done a few more tokens just, for coolness of time. Let me go back up to the adapters as we look at that and look at the config.json. I think, yeah, I have mock API3 and then scroll token on here. So you'll see it listed on here. And so this is the website that you'll come up with. You'll have your assets on here. You'll see supplies. We have wrap BTC, mock API3, scroll token, USDC, and mock wrap ETH on here and available to borrow. So we are basically ready to connect. We have an entire front end that will let you, deposit and supply. You can connect your wallet. It works off the, what is it called? I want to say WAGMI, but it's not. Rainbow Kit front end. So you can connect that. So let me just connect my Aave deployer here. Once my MetaMask is loading, I think it's like slow because I'm doing that deployment on the back end here. Let me see. How are we doing here? Yeah, we're still getting there. Oh, this one's done. So way quicker, not so much traffic on scroll. I guess everybody's kind of like bull run watching instead of building. So that one completed out there. So not too bad. And let me go. Let me switch out of this and let me go to my Aave deployer. It's total testnet stuff here. So let me go here and make sure that's good. Cool. Let me connect. Oh, and so now I can like deposit stuff. So one thing that we want to make sure that we have, and this is just a little extra thing in when we're playing around and we're messing around with our borrow lending dApp, I have a few scripts here that kind of take you through a whole bunch of things to deposit certain things and play with it. But I want you to do it through the front end. But one thing we want to know is that when we deploy the tokens, it all goes to our main wallet, right? And we can't really liquidate ourselves. So I created a script here that will distribute the tokens to another wallet on here. So that way we have a second wallet to play with. So if you use your mnemonic, it will go to the second wallet in here. So that way, you have another wallet that can, play with, borrow lending, deposit certain assets, borrow certain assets. So I just basically hit distribute. If you look at the package.json file, I just have a few of those, scripts, and it's basically yarn distribute. So if we're on the main thing, we just hit yarn distribute. And one thing that I do want to mention here is and this is for the WSL guys only, when Docker deploys the Aave oracles and creates those files in your local repository, it does it under the admin account. And so if you have a WSL library user account, like mine is Billy, you won't have permission to do so. So really quick on my notes, and this again struggled me as well, is you're going to want to, and I'll put this in the private chat here, you're going to want to change the permissions for that specific folder. The only thing that's going to change is your username, so after the home, it's going to be the username that you set for that. And then, the folder that you put your repo in, and the Aave CLI too. So you change your permissions for that. So that way, you can run the scripts. Otherwise, you're going to get no permission error. So that sudo chi own or chown, or however anybody says it, you're basically giving permissions to that user account in that folder, just because Docker tends to change the ownership of that on that subfolder. And I tried doing it in the Docker files, but it wasn't consistent. So just in case you're getting into issues, that's the thing you want to adjust. So basically, it goes through all your assets here. So that script is over. I just wanted to mention that because when I run the scripts and you try to run that immediately, it won't work until you do that command. So it distributes all the tokens that I have. It gets 20% of it. So like I've just distributed all to my other wallet. So I have Scroll USDC on there. So let's go back into the borrow lending dapp, because that's where we want to see, And so this is the way the bank works, right? You see this big health factor here. This is the way the bank works. A bank can't lend out money if it has no money to lend out. So there's got to be someone that has to deposit assets for people to borrow. So me being the large whale and the, market maker or deal creator here, is I'm going to deposit some USDC for, the world to pop in there. So let's just, I don't know, 5 million, because I got it like that, so we'll see. We're going to go ahead and approve that in here, and I'll just max approve it. We're on testnet anyway, whichever. Approve that, and then we're going to go ahead and supply it. And so then the bank has 5 million USDC to supply. It can't borrow anything, so I can't like borrow ETH or anything unless someone deposits it. So as a borrow lending dapp, you have to incentivize users to deposit. Like why Billy Jitsu borrow lending dapp versus Aave versus Compound versus all these other ones is why you want to, come up with something cool. What makes things super cool is OEV, right? Like if you're using API3 oracles and the OEVs on there, that you get, money back when people do liquidations on there when they bid high on it. Well, now you have a reason to give a higher API, APY, APRs, better incentives. So if one, like right now, the market is insane. Like if you look at markets, you have like 15 to 20% deposit APYs. So it's like, okay, but if someone's giving out 50% legitimately, like why wouldn't I just go there, right? So if you can give higher rewards to users, you're good to go. So you'll see that here I have my balance is 5 million. Let me see if I refresh this really quick. See if we can see our health factor. No, because I have nothing to borrow against. So like it's basically a million, right? So I have this $5 million I'm earning right now. No one's borrowing anything, so I'm not earning any yield on it, right? So like there, without any token incentives, it's like, why would I do this? I'll go somewhere else, right? So we're going to go over to our nifty other wallet that has all these other tokens. We want to borrow certain things from that position. And I got my wallet on here. So you see that my supply is 0. So let's supply some mock scroll here. So let's do like 1 million scroll. And that's worth right now, awesome, good price. We're in a good market, $1.3 million. So I'm going to go ahead and deposit in there. Again, I'm approving my tokens in order for a contract to move this. And one thing I want to mention, and a lot of people don't realize, is when you approve, oh, do I not have gas? What? What is this outrage? I don't. Let me just send something from the other one here. That's embarrassing. Let me see in my other wallet. All right, let me go to my Aave V2 deployer and just send like 0.5 ETH. And I don't have that, so 0.2. All right. Anyways, as I was saying, when you approve something in a contract, you're approving something to pull from your wallet, right? Like you're not sending it to the contract, you're approving the contract, the smart contract to say, hey, you have permission to take money from my wallet. And I think a lot of people get that confused, like when they do approve, and that's why we see so many hacks, is you're literally saying, hey, you have your deadbeat boyfriend or whatever, or girlfriend is like, hey, let me get some money from your wallet. Well, some money means infinity approvals, like this, I'm max approving, versus you can take $20 from my wallet, right? So when you approve that finite amount, that's the maximum that any smart contract or contract can take from your wallet. But when you're approving, you have that open approval, like, yes, you can take this much money from it. So if I've approved a max, so theoretically, if there was a hack, it could take the entire amount of scroll that I have. If I want to do specifically, then I would have to approve only for 1 million with the 18 decimals behind it. Just a little tidbit. Maybe most of you know this already, but just in case for someone that doesn't, that's the way smart contracts works with the approval system on there. Approve first, you have permission to take this much amount, and then the execution is the contract will go into your wallet and then take it. And that's kind of like introduction into how flash loan works, right? When you're giving certain borrowing amount, promising to pay it back on that transaction, sort of hand in hand in a sense. So now we've deposited our $1 million or 1 million scroll right here, right? And so now our market, let me just refresh it to have on here, is we have available to borrow USDC or scroll, right? The bank now has the ability to lend out certain amounts here. So I'm going to go crazy. I want to borrow USD because I want to buy way more scroll, right? I want to leverage my position and max it out here. And so I want to max the entire amount on here, which is 70% of my loan to value. You see right here, this health factor right here. This is what it's telling me, like, oh, you're maxing out your position. So if I were to borrow 1,000, my health factor is like 10K. It's like super healthy. There's no way, even if scroll drops in value of 50%, there's no way on it. But if I start borrowing more, okay, 1,000, well, you're getting closer and more. Okay, health factor 100, which is a really good health factor. Like health factor of 2 is like amazing. But if I keep borrowing more, you'll see that my health factor keeps getting lower and lower. And then when I hit the max, this is the max. It's like you're extremely close to liquidation. Liquidation, as soon as it hits below 1, that's when you get liquidated. That's when your wallet is up for grabs and anybody can liquidate you. So I'm going to go ahead. I acknowledge the risks on here, and I'm going to go ahead and borrow this USDC. And so let me just make sure that's good and borrow that. And now what I've done with this is I've deposited my scroll. I didn't want to sell it because I believe it's going to go up, right? Up in value. I want to buy something. I maybe buy more ETH, buy more scroll, buy whatever. I now have almost $1 million here to buy whatever I want or just earn yield, right? And so right now it's still early, but my net API is pretty low because I'm making certain, amount here in scroll, but now I'm paying a debt here in USDC. So I'm basically negative 1.87 because I have to pay back this loan. And that's where that yield is coming from, right? That depositor for USDC is now earning about 1% a year based on what the calculations are happening in the back end. My health factor is 1.8. So as a searcher, someone that wants to do liquidations, I am salivating on a market change for this position, right? Because I was like, ooh, if this scroll position drops down in value, if it goes below $1 or whatever it is right now, that means I can liquidate and I can get that scroll, pay back this loan of $1 million, borrow that out, get that money back and earn 5% on a liquidation. And it's like kind of like that easy. It's just a matter of finding that position. But you'll see that you have your net worth is, definitely lower because I had $1 million worth of scroll, but now I've borrowed it out. So my real value is only 30% of what it was, health factor. And then you see that I'm on a net negative. So, it's my duty to find ways to invest or figure out a way. I could probably, if there was good incentives, reloan it back to USDC. A lot of people do looping. A lot of people do that. So like if there's good incentives where the incentives outweigh the cost of borrowing the money, You just basically loop over a whole bunch of times, and then you get like a bonus, like you net positive additional 2%, but you can leverage your position on there. So a lot of strategies you can do with borrow lending, especially if you don't want to sell, depending on where you are in the region. You want to borrow money off of it, but you don't want to pay the taxes. Well, this is basically borrowing off your assets. So you are doing like rich people stuff, right? All permissionless, ready to go. And I guess the value just went up for Scroll. So like my health factor went up. So it went up by a penny or something. And so the Oracle updated. So we see it live. Now my health factor is 1.09. So like just because the value went up, it goes up and down over time. So it is reading it live. But yeah, this is pretty much where we're going to stop in the borrowing lending aspect, because the next part is going to be the liquidation part, right? We have this position, we have this, this person that has deposited a certain asset that's volatile, they're borrowing a stable asset, and their health factor goes below 1%. We're going to use the power of OEV to do that liquidation, but we're going to do it step by step. For those that want to kind of like jump ahead, there are some scripts if you want to look at it right here, because you'll see that I have a whole bunch of scripts on here that basically take you through what I've done. You distribute the tokens, deposit USDC from the main wallet, deposit an asset from the secondary wallet, borrow from the secondary wallet, and then look at token reserves, see what the position is. And I think there is a button called liquidate where you can actually liquidate the position from an EOA. That's not the way you would do it on a normal production status, but this is to get you tasting what liquidation would be like if you happen to have $1 million in your wallet and your EOA and decided to do a deposit on there and like do the liquidation. I don't know how many people have $1 million of whatever asset randomly in their wallet, so not realistic, but it's something that you can look around with and prepare yourself for the next one, because the next one's going to be a lot of skipping over all this stuff, right? We've already seen the positions, we've seen the health factors. We're going to look at the scripts of like, okay, we see this health factors close to it. We know that the market's going in this certain direction, and then we're going to prepare when that Oracle changes, and we will look at that health factor. Then we perform our liquidations, what comes back to that same lending pool provider, which is over here. We're going to interact with our lending pool address provider to get the address, that location. If I look at the workshop, and we're going to perform our liquidation. Let me just make that large. So this part is where we're basically going to hit that liquidation, and we're going to interact with this lending pool. So everything we've done, deposit, borrow, all has been happening on the lending pool. If you want to like dig deep into the code, you can go right into the contracts. You can look right into the protocol, and there is the lending pool. And if we look at the lending pool.sol, we can kind of like F3 search here, and just like deposit. Oops, it helps if I actually type it in the thing. Deposit. And let me see if I get F3 here. We see the find the function. There we go, function deposit, and you can see exactly how it all works and all interfaces. So looking at this tool, you can see how everything kind of connects to each other with imports. When you look at the code directly on the top, it is overwhelming because it is importing so many things from so many different places. And then doing basically a reverse trace is basically what this interface is for on there. So for those that want to kind of jump ahead a little bit and play with it, but if you don't know DeFi or don't understand it, literally just mess around with this. Is probably the safest place where you can make your own tokens. I know when you do stuff on testnet, like it's hard to find tokens for it. It's hard to find the testnet tokens, or they don't match what it is. Well, now you have the value to create your own tokens. You have the ability to list your own tokens and make whatever tokens you want. So that way you can play with it, understand it, over leverage, watch your health factor. You see how the value went down. So now my health factor is a little bit lower. So people are taking profits on whatever, token went up. So you can watch it live, and it's your very own borrow lending platform for you to use. And it's literally, I don't want to say for production, because I don't think we've got it audited, but the Aave part has already been battle tested. API3 adapters have an audit on them too, but you just don't blame me if you go into production on this and like adjust it. Like you have to re-audit your code for sure. But yeah, I think that's it. If there's any other questions, let me know.
There's 2 more workshops? 3 more?
3 more, 3
3
more workshops.
more. Okay,
Yeah,
okay. We need to schedule it, but I don't know, Christmas is coming.
yeah,
People
next
want
year.
next year. We'll see you guys next year.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just filling in space right now because I know there's a bit of lag when it comes to live streams and
Okay.
questions. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're not gonna get anything immediate.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, this was really cool. The slides were actually very helpful. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Um, I guess to
DeFi.
reiterate.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks,
Yeah.
Billy. All clear. So
Nice,
I
nice.
think I think our lag is done.
Okay.
Um, but good
Yeah.
job. You got it within 55 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, I try
So
to time it all out to see how fast I need to tempo it and everything,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's DeFi again, I'm a major DeFi guy, like, it's what inspired me to code, to even learn
Hmm.
how to do all this stuff, so, I mean, I know AI agents are hot, but DeFi makes you money. So, if you're all about that money,
Yeah,
then,
yeah. Well, I
definitely
guess
learn some
question
DeFi.
just to confirm,
Yeah.
are you using all these tutorials, right, to make your bags right now?
No, I mean, this is
Ish.
the intro to it, right? Like, this is
Okay.
very, very basic. This is again, finding this information is actually pretty difficult, right? Like, it's very PvP, right? Because
Hmm.
when you're doing, opportunities, everybody wants that 5%, right? That's why we have MEV wars. That's how you have all these things on layer one. But like when you go to layer twos and you actually look at the Dune analytics, there's a lot of opportunity on there because there's a lot of volume on ETH mainnet, which is amazing. But when you look at layer twos, like if you analyze some of the older ones, like Arbitrum and Optimism, you see people are like spamming liquidations. Like they'll spam something 50 times in a block to try to be the first one because there's no way to bribe your way in to it. And so like with OEV, it's like you don't have to spam that, right? You just own the right to update the Oracle. So then you can then do the liquidations on there. And then some platforms, if you look at the Dune Analytics, they don't get liquidated for like 2 days. So it's like nobody's watching it. So you're like, how come no one liquidated this position? Even if it's like $15, it's like, oh, okay, let me just liquidate and make 15 bucks real quick. So it's if you understand how the mechanics work, you can start finding creative locations, things that are happening on Scroll Network. Like, hey, no one's watching this borrow lending platform. So
Yeah.
why don't I take an opportunity? Like this, I always say like there's like hackathons, like you make short-term money, but like DeFi is like the skills that pay the bills no matter what, any market
Sounds like
condition,
pay the
whether it's up
bills.
and down.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's definitely something that you want to have in your playbook
Mhm.
for general usage, for your own usage, or just, how many people ask me for reference? Do you know anybody that knows DeFi? And I'm like, so I'm working on it, right? So now everybody knows DeFi. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So now little by little understanding how that works. So like if you bring it back from all the courses, you're understanding oracles, how they work. In workshop 2, we did multi-call, so you know how to understand multiple calls in a single transaction. That way you don't get wrecked if you update the oracle. And now you understand a little bit about how borrow lending works. So play with it. The only way to do it, it's like if you don't do it yourself, it's like I say learning how to play basketball from a book. You don't know until you actually throw the ball. So like get in there and get your hands dirty. So this you could do without real money and without getting wrecked. So play with it, understand it. And then once you feel comfortable, then we'll start understanding how liquidations work. And then again, in workshop 4 is like, okay, well, I don't have the money to do so. No problem. That's what flash loans are for. And so then you can do flash loans and borrow. So all you really need is gas money, and that's it. You don't really need $1 million or millions of dollars of anything. You can all do it with flash loans. So the more you learn about this stuff, the more it pays off for you because it just opportunity. So yep, hopefully people get a good amount of knowledge from this, whether it's API3 or not. Like these skills you can take almost anywhere else. It's just, we'll sprinkle a little bit of API3 in there, and so hopefully you maximize your OEV.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining. I guess we'll see you in the new year. I just posted the GitHub repo as well in our Level Up Telegram chat.
Nice.
So for those of you who want to go play around, tinker, build the foundations to get your bags,
Yeah.
um, yeah, check it
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
So uh, thanks so much, Billy. I guess we'll wrap it up here. And
Yeah.
everyone have a good holiday season.
Indeed. Yeah, I figure everybody's gonna do some Christmas shopping and chilling and finals and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
We'll
Use
come back and tell
DeFi
you.
to fund your Christmas gifts. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, leverage max, guys. Max leverage, guys. Come on.
Yeah, yeah, if you don't do this and
Yeah.
you don't get your mom, like, the
Yeah.
best gift ever,
If you're
then
not max leveraging, my Christmas is canceled, okay, guys?
yeah, yeah, Billy will be sad, family will be sad.
Alright, guys.
Disappointments all around.
Yeah,
Okay, okay, cool,
yeah.
cool. Jokes
Alright.
aside, again, thank you so much for joining, Billy. I'm gonna end the stream here.